You're listening to the Iron and Grace podcast, so pick up your sword and join the good fight.
Ephesians 6:4. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. What is up?
What's up, brother?
How you doing?
Not too bad. This is Kyle.
This is Drew.
Welcome to Iron and Grace.
So we seem to kind of bounce back and forth topics. You have a topic, I have a topic. So I guess today it's my turn since I read the Bible verse. Talking about generational families and building a household and what that means in today's world and what that looks like. And we talked a little bit about before we started about this, and I think it's an interesting topic because it's something that I'm passionate about and I've read on and kind of studied, but I may have more book education on the topic of this, but you have way more actual applicable.
I have a touch of life experience here.
Real life experience. So I think it'll be an interesting topic for me to hit from my mind stance and then actually hearing your perspective of kind of living it out, I guess.
Well, to be fair, everybody has some experience here because everybody grows up in some level of family. Even if you don't have an actual family, everybody's had some kind of community that they've grown up in one way or another.
Yeah, that's true. So I think I'll start out kind of talking about how we see household and like families today. And I think the shift in perspective that I see and something that I wasn't even really aware of till I read these two books, which I brought, so we can give them a shout out. This one, Man of the House by C.R. Wiley, and then The Household in the World and the Cosmos. I think C.R. Wiley as a whole has been like super impactful to me. These are topics that, till I heard him talk about, I never even thought. And between his preaching and books and content that he puts out there online, and then honestly, my relationship with you from when I started training jiu-jitsu, I mean, it completely reshaped the way I think about kids, the way I think about building a household and family. And I would say as me and Deanna as a marriage have completely shifted gears on kind of the way we were thinking about whether having kids, whether we were going to build, your stereotypical family. Mm-hmm. It's definitely completely changed my perspective. So thanks to you. Thanks to Mr. Wiley for showing me the light, I would say.
We got babies coming yet?
Not yet, but soon.
Come on, man, get to work.
That is the goal. So it's a humbling, scary thing, but it's the way. So
it is the way.
That is the goal. But I want to talk about, I think we're in a similar age bracket, but I think the generation before us, there was a lot of individualism that kind of, I think, has crippled families as a whole. And I think that's culturally, that's societally, it's subtle too. It's not like people, they don't always appear selfish on the outside, right? Mm. But there's this self-interest. Like you see the bumper stickers, like I'm spending my kid's inheritance on the RV or whatever, right. Or vacations. Like they're going to make their own way now, right? That's something you see. Like I don't want to give stuff to my kid because it's going to make them entitled, which we've talked about before, or they're not going to, have work ethic. And I think it's just completely backwards. I don't think when it comes to passing things down to our children, I don't think you can just discredit it because, I don't want to make them spoiled, or I don't want to make that rich kid or give them things. They're going to make their own way.
Oh, that was the speaker on my computer.
I was like, we got ghosts up in here. We'll talk about that Bible study. Demons up in here, something. Just the speaker.
Yeah,
just the speaker.
Just the speaker, not a demon.
But, I think it's not you can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like you can have kids that aren't entitled, that are gracious, that understand where the family's wealth, the family's skill sets come from, and still pass and enable them to succeed down the road. And that, I think, is, when you think about it that way, the generational family, I think that is the proper way to do it, right? Yeah. And how we look at that. We had a comment on one of our pages, or one of our shorts, I think it was, and the guy he was way older than us. I think he was in his 60s, but he was talking about his two kids and how they were able to stay at home, go to school, waited till they got careers started, had some backbone behind them, had some financial behind them, mm-hmm. and they went out, got married, now have a household, were able to afford, a house, which they might have not been able to do if he was just like, you're going to go to college, get student debt, kick you out at 18, you're going to make your own way.
Well, I think quite a bit about I mean, I don't have much for my kids to inherit at this point. Maybe by the time that day comes, but I think with the idea of passing things on to your kids, it's if the only thing that you're passing on is a wealth, then yeah, obviously that's probably not going to work out great. But if you pass on to them, your faith, your morality, your work ethic, your understanding of how to deal with financial things, along with some level of financial stability, then it's not a bad thing because you've given them the lumber and the tools to build the lumber into something,
Yeah. And I think that's like a good example, an analogy of like how to properly structure it in our minds and how we should look at it. Like you said, you're not just giving them the simple wealth or the resources, you're giving them the skill sets. And that's something that I think generationally, I talked to somebody at work about this, and I used the example of a dentist or a doctor or whatever. You don't see these generational professionals or generational businesses anymore. You see these like first-time doctor of the family or first-time carpenter of the family, And I think there's something lost there. If I'm going to go to the dentist and I have two options, this person's parent was in business, or my dad's an HR director. He was in HR, and his kid became a dentist. Do I think his ability to be a dentist is lesser? And probably not. He's schooled and everything, but can it really be to the same level?
Crossover there.
Yeah, I mean, can it be to the same level of the guy that's literally the last 3 generations of his family have been dentists? I just think you can't honestly say that there's not an advantage there.
Yeah.
Not saying that someone can't go out and do something different than their parents. Always an option. Always an option. And I think it has to be. You can't be that rigid and tell them this is what you're going to do. But 100 years ago, that's how a lot of the families were structured. A skill set was passed down through their household to their kids, which sometimes they picked up, that skill set and excelled in it. Maybe they took the family business or whatever skill set that was and stepped out into the world, or maybe they did go a different route. But I think there is something lost when you think about it in those terms of generational families passing down not just wealth, but skill sets too.
Babe,
I got to answer this.
Yeah, go ahead.
We are back.
And we're back.
Yeah.
Drew had to go be a good husband for a minute.
Yeah, but that's something too. Like after Charlie Kirk got killed, Frank Turek talked about that about Charlie, and that's something that I've always tried to do my very best to be. Is like your spouse, your children. Like I want to be around people that type of thing happens. Like if Jerry Lynn calls and needs you, like we stop the podcast because that's the problem.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's something that it's super important. Yeah. But
anyways, where were we?
Households and generational families.
There we are.
So talking about passing skill sets down through the family and how that can compound, and you can become better at whatever that skill set is as it gets passed down. But I think as a household in general, like what is the household nowadays? And I know Wiley talks about it. The households you see nowadays are almost just like a fun house. Like that's what it is. It's a place for entertainment. It's not a place to build us into better humans, to raise families, to learn skill sets, to, study scripture, to worship. That's what it should be. We've turned them into like self-serving, entertainment centers. Like we pass through them, we rest, we get entertained, and then we're off to be productive somewhere else. And I think there should be a shift. There needs to be a return to what he describes in that book as like a productive household, an economical household, that all of the individuals in the household serve the household mission as a whole. That could look like dad works, mom stays home, supports the household from a housemaker type standpoint, but it doesn't have to look that way. Maybe there's a family business. You guys have a business that you run and you have a skill set. Jerry Lynn supports that skill set. Obviously, Jerry Lynn has a big responsibility at home, teaching the kids, raising the kids, but y'all could never be on this mission together successfully, raising the children that you've raised without that central target, right? The household's moving together on one mission. And we kind of talked about that last week with masculinity, but we've seen nowadays with like, I don't know, want to blame it on college or the woke mind virus or whatever is done what it's done, but there's like this like stark independent type mentality that you're going to rebel against your parents, you're going to go to college, and then you get to college, and with a lot of these liberal woke mind virus colleges that you see, not only do they believe things that, you know, aren't in tune with the Christian faith, but also they're rebellious.
Reality in general.
You're right. Reality in general. They're also have a rebellious spirit. Not saying your parents are always right, and some people have some pretty crappy parents, but I don't think an educational university should be out there trying to manipulate kids' philosophies and thought processes away from their parents, which is like really like is actually what's happening in a lot of these institutions. There was a attorney at work, and she literally laid that out. She was like, you know, I grew up in a conservative household. I was even very conservative, and then I went to college, and I realized that they were essentially lying to me, and now I think the right way, right? And it's like you have a parent that you've trusted your whole life, that's raised you, loved you, and probably paid for your college, and now you're going to go to these colleges and meet these professors, which you really don't know anything about, and you're going to trust them over generations of families that's raised you this way, because they're probably not first generation conservative family. I don't know if they're Christian or what, but you see that happening a lot with kids leaving what is standard household into like the educational university world and completely shift in the way that they're going and the way that they're
I wonder what really causes that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I didn't have that. I grew up in two homes because I had my mom's house and my dad's house. And my dad's far more conservative than my mom. My mom's, I don't know, I guess middle-ish of the road. But I never really went through that rebellious. I mean, I'm rebellious, but I never went through the like, I'm going to politically repel against my parents and become the, what do they used to say? If you're in your 20s and you're not a liberal, you don't have a heart. And if you're in your 40s and you're not conservative, you don't have a brain. But I never really went through that liberal stage.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was because, you know, my relationship with my dad, like I grew up working kind of alongside him. So I saw some of the realities of, you know, conservatism and how it actually works and how the other side maybe doesn't
or thinks it works
as much.
But I think that's a good like segue too, and that something like, you know, your dad being in construction, you were out there learning construction like from the jump. Like, and construction is a unique skill set that can be utilized later in life for a lot of things, but you took the skill set essentially of, you know, working with your hands and craftsmanship, and now you've excelled and taken that into another realm. But it's those skill sets that he instilled in you that now have helped you excel in what you do now, which is still a physical skill, like a craftsman type trait.
Yeah. I work with my hands. You know, still dragging knuckles and swinging a hammer. I was thinking about, I've been kind of stuck on the same thought since we were talking about leaving wealth, and I made the comment about the lumber. You know, I grew up doing construction with my dad. So I grew up around tools and how to use tools and, you know, nail guns and circular saws and all the things. So when I grew up, essentially I could be given that pile of lumber and the tools, and okay, now I can build something with it. I'm probably not going to do a very good job building with it because you're still young, you know, still young, but have an idea of where to start.
Yeah.
Whereas if I hadn't been, I don't want to say forced, but heavily encouraged to work alongside my dad, then he could provide me with those same things later in life. Like, here's your lumber, here's your tools. Yeah. And not only do I have no damn clue how to build anything with it, but I'm probably going to cut my freaking hand off. Yeah. with that, you know, you're given the tools, and those tools become more of a detriment than a help.
Yeah. And that just like wealth is. And like you said, it's not necessarily just giving wealth or passing wealth down, and wealth in a holistic way, not just financially, but real estate, education, resources, things, even just like a loving household, we're thinking about it as a whole, not just financial, right? Mm-hmm. But passing those down during their lifetime. So like you said, like you can grow those skill sets and know how to use the things that they're going to then inherit down the road. I think a good example would be like, let's say, productive real estate. If you had rental properties, it would be unwise for someone in their later years to just hand off, a paid for rental property to their kid if their kid had never been involved in it at all their whole entire life.
Yeah. Well, and I think that metaphor goes for like the family itself also. If your kids never see, they see mom and dad and they see how you parent them one-on-one, but they don't get to see the whole relationship between, you and your spouse and, maybe you're a family that both of you have to work and the kids have to go to public school or spend a significant amount of time in daycare. I mean, I understand you've got to do what you've got to do. Yeah. But, all of a sudden they're 18 years old and they didn't really get the understanding of how to use the tools of, parenting and running a family and the dynamics of like, oh, mom and dad had a fight and this is how they worked through it, and whatever, hopefully your fights don't look like knockdown, drag out fights, but like, everybody argues from time to time or bickers. How do you handle that? So like all of those things are tools and how to use those tools. So like if the kid's 18 and goes to college and they don't have that background of getting to see how, how the machine worked on the inside, then I guess it makes some sense that when they're exposed to things that they've never seen before, they're like, oh, well, this is new and fun and these people are interested in me supposedly. And maybe that's where some of that rebellion comes in.
I mean, I think you are spot on that. And like I said, wealth, like those things are, it's wealth that is passed down through generations, how we should structure and discipline and all these things of having like a proper family and raising kids right. And, all these things that not everybody like has that, not everybody, if you're from a really, really broken family or like a single parent, and there was abuse involved, like you're not taught, how to properly discipline a kid. You're not taught, when my kid, turns 14 or, starts hitting puberty, like, what do? I did it on my own. I learned on my own, You're not taught those things. Like that's things that like, if they're not there, it really makes it, you're like fighting uphill. Like even just simple being, a good person and things like seeing people come from like really broken families that turn into like exceptional people, like is a really like humbling thing. Cause it's like, they didn't have nobody to tell them like, hey, what you're doing is wrong. This is how you need to do it. They just, I guess, found out through experience, but and
then some people come from great households and turn out to be total turds.
That's true. That if nothing, that speaks to the brokenness of our hearts,
Yeah, for sure.
If we don't check them. But I know listening to some podcasts that Wiley was on, and then I was listening to the King Hall's podcast the other day, and they were talking about this topic. And the gentleman that was on there, I think his name was Dan. He wasn't like a social media guy. But he had 2 dog kennels that he had started and they ran as a family, and he had just bought this big farm and they had a trout farm, like fish trout farm that they, the kids worked and helped. And some of the kids were like older and teenagers, and then some of the kids were young, but, where was I going with that? See, I get off topic a lot. I get off topic. This is, Squirrel. A guy at work, the clerks were like, oh, his nickname is Squirrel because he can't stay focused. Speaking of that, but, oh, I got it. So when we think about where did this start, like where did this turn from, okay, we're a family and our household is together and we serve the community as a whole, as a household, to these individual type mentalities. And maybe it's like conspiracy theory or like tinfoil hat. I don't think it is. People are probably going to say it is, but I think the farther you go towards like totalitarianism, the farther the government as a whole and politics is going to push you towards individualism, because the farther you are away from a household, the closer you are to the institutions that you have to rely on, which is going to be the government, welfare states, things of that nature, because prior to the current culture and climate we live in now, really throughout history, the household was that institutional structure that held people up. Right. That's what they relied on. These communities, especially in the United States too, like it was built on households. And I think we can get back to that. And I think that'll heal us as a culture and as a community. Hopefully that's what we get back to. But I think that's where you've seen the teardown of the household, or the teardown of what they call the nuclear family. Because if you can get somebody individualized, like separated, they're going to be more reliant on governmental resources, which, now we go down a whole rabbit hole of, where are we going from a government politics standpoint, right?
Yeah.
But that's the world I want to see. I want to see households that are independent, that can hold their values independently, and also not only like he talks about in these books, not only have, because you can't hold to your values if you don't have any type of backbone or resources behind you, right? Back in the day, you couldn't vote unless you were a homeowner. Yeah, and there was a reason for that, because they didn't want you to be skewed or swayed by financial resources, which is what you see nowadays. That's like the quasi-political game, right? We're going to give tax cuts. We're going to give more welfare.
Who gives the best free crap?
Yeah, of course they're going to get voted for, right? Because out of our self-interest, But if we have these strong, resource-heavy households that can quite literally hold themselves up. There's a purpose for the civil magistrate, right? From a biblical standpoint, there is. And we need government, we need rule, we need law, we need people to enforce those things, because that's not the role of the household, to come in and arrest people. But when a household's strong enough to hold itself up from a financial support, from like we talked about how our families should run and support each other from like just ethics-wise and virtues, right? They should be able to operate independently, and that'll support the community as a whole, right? But now we see these like very individualistic type mindsets, and you're still relying on something, but instead of relying on your generational household, you're relying on who you voted for in the government.
Yeah.
That's my take on it from what I've thought about. That was a lot to unpack.
I'm digesting.
You see it in other countries that are like a lot of these countries like China and things like that you see the teardown of the household, and it, even just from like not an actual like seeing it happen, but like from a logic standpoint, like it makes sense. Like if they can break up the nuclear family and keep you from that and not having that strong household, you can see what else are we going to rely on? That's where the government comes in, and
Yeah, we've also gotten, in this country, kind of we've gotten away from big families.
Yes.
It's pretty rare. Yeah. When we had 3 kids, people were like, man, you've got a lot of kids. Well, I have 3 kids. 3's not a lot. Like we've just barely gone past replacing ourselves.
Yeah.
And, you tell people now you've got 5 kids and you've got the quintessential, what causes that, right? And don't you own a TV? Like those are your top comebacks when someone asks how many kids you have, and you say I have 5 kids. Like, but all of my children know how to interact in a community because they're freaking stuck in one 24 hours a day. Like none of our kids are spoiled because we couldn't spoil the kids if we wanted to. Spoiling 5 kids would be
it's going to be a hard task.
And sometimes this kid gets attention and this kid doesn't. And all of those things, that's just how life works outside of the house too.
It's funny that you bring that up too, because on the way here, I was listening to a podcast that Wiley was on, and I'm not going to name drop. He name dropped, so you can watch the podcast, but a church up in New York, and he quite honestly stated it like it is. You see these churches, and they're a bunch of career-oriented single people, and he was talking about he's known people physically that have gone to these churches, and he gave like kind of the funny analogy of like, okay, you come, you're married, okay. You come, you have 1 kid, okay. You come, you have 2 kids, oh, that's nice, they're nice little kids. You come and have 3 kids, and now people are kind of like, I don't know about that. You come with 4 kids, and then you come with 5 or 6, and people are like, oh, no.
Something wrong. Yeah,
something wrong. And that's a shame, that from a biblical standpoint, I think that's wrong. Not to say that there's situations, there's health concerns. Not everybody's going to have kids. Like that's just a reality, but I think it's to not think about it and try and strive towards that, whatever that looks like, adoption or whatever that may be, or maybe you just that's not going to be your path or whatever. But I think it would be to not think of large families as something that God wants us to do, I think is definitely not the way to think.
Yeah, the mindset of, oh, you have a bunch of kids, I'm really sorry, is crazy. Is backwards. It's like, oh, you are 40 and you don't have any kids?
I mean,
like, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's joy and there's frustration and stress and all kinds of things that comes with having kids, but it's so much better than it is not. Like the good outweighs the quote unquote bad by so much. It's not even comparable. Yeah. One of the guys at the gym today, I don't remember exactly what he said.
You're exactly.
Yes. I couldn't remember if he had kids. I'm like, how many kids do you have? And he's like, oh, none, thank God, or something like that.
I think his actual words, and nothing against him, like, we love you.
He's a great guy.
But this is a good example of like where that mindset, and this is something that he's probably never even really thought about this way. He literally said, "Don't put that demon on me."
Yeah,
that's what he said. Which that he doesn't mean that literally, but that's a hyperbolic way of saying like, oh, I don't know, like, ooh, that should never be our reaction.
And I mean that's like, I hear that and I'm like,
it makes you sad.
It does. It really does. Because I mean, I have friends and I have family that have no kids that are beyond the point of they're never going to have kids, and there's definitely a miss there. Like there's no doubt that, and not all of them feel regret about that, but it, like I said in our last episode, you're not really, I don't think you've become a man until you're responsible for another life.
Yeah.
And maybe that was like a little bit extreme, although I don't really think so. But having children, and you can see it in our buddy whose wife is 20 weeks pregnant, which thank God she's been through several miscarriages and lots of fear in the beginning of this pregnancy, but she's doing good. Baby's doing good. So thank you, God. It's awesome. But you can see it. You can see a man start to change. If he's oriented properly, you can see him start to change. The more that woman's body changes and that baby grows in there, that boy starts to change into a man. And I'm getting a little bit extreme with my language there because, everybody handles it a little bit differently, but there is a change that happens through that process. Should always be for the better. Is it always for the better? No, I mean, some people suck. All right. So
they do.
Some people suck, but unless you suck, if you love your wife, as she changes and goes through things with the pregnancy, you change and go through things and you learn how to take care of her in different ways and you learn how to love her in different ways. And then when that kid comes, it's like, okay, I am now responsible for multiple lives. Like these people rely on me. Maybe or maybe not financially, whatever your household situation is. I know there are plenty of women out there that make way more money than their husbands, and that's fine, whatever. But one way or another, like you are now the head of a household. It's not just you and her where if something happens and you split ways, everybody's got bad feelings towards one person and it's no big deal. You go your separate ways. It's now there's another being there that relies on you and her and the way you and her do life together. And that's a really, really powerful thing.
Yeah.
Or it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. And I know it will, change us in the better. I think it's something that should always change you in the better. I mean, I guess it could change you for the worse, but the flippant nature of that response, that he said, and he's saying it flippantly, because that's what culture says. And that's a sad thing that's what culture says, but that's the result, and he's works in law enforcement. So there's a lot to unpack there, right? Like you see some bad stuff. So
yeah. That's and fair.
Yeah.
And hey, the world, there's a reason why there are lots of individuals and married couples that choose not to have kids nowadays. There's a lot of reasons. Like there's healthcare is freaking expensive, food's expensive, everything's expensive, and the world tells you, having kids is a burden, and you're not going to be able to do this, and you're not going to be able to do that. Like there are a lot of reasons why people choose not to have kids. Unfortunately, most of those things are just straight up lies.
Yeah,
and or the flip side of it is so good that it really outweighs what they say is a negative thing.
Yeah, and in the podcast that I listened to, this gentleman Dan, and I want to say they were actually talking about Chris's book Man of the House, and like they were going through like different topics that he addresses in that, but he was talking about how we've taken children from an asset to the family and an asset to their parents and made them a liability, and like that's just such a backwards way to think about it. They're such an asset to us from a financial standpoint and from a joy standpoint and from a human standpoint. Like they make you who you are, right? They make you, and I know you can relate to that. They give us so much joy. Scripture tells us too that, children are joyful and they should be viewed that way and they should give you joy. And when I say from a financial standpoint, there was a quote that I heard, I have no idea who it was. I think it was, I don't even want to say if it was a pastor or a Christian or what it was, but he was talking about how, I don't know if he had this experience or somebody told him about this experience, but if you don't have any children, you're going to die, right? Everyone's going to die. You're going to get old and die. So if you don't have any children, you have a spouse and they pass away first, you're going to be alone in a hospital bed getting taken care of by some random nurse, which nurses are awesome. And that's why they're there, but that's not how I want to die. No. That's a lonely way to go. And I don't think our generation, like specifically our generation, was ever told like, hey, I know you're like on the fence about kids, but like when you're 75 and you need some help, if you don't have any kids around you, you're going to be on this by yourself. And then, hopefully you can afford some hospice care or a nurse, or else you're just dying alone, which is like, when you think about it that way, it's like, oh geez. But that's from the financial standpoint of, hopefully you build a productive economical house that you can pass down through the generations and you're able to support your own self. But, things do happen. And if your kids then go on to have the same type of economic success that you have, whether that be in a like family run business or whether they step out and do their own thing, they're able to financially support you when you do get old, when you do get sick. They're able to make those adjustments for you, and that's the way it should structure. But back to the whole government thing, that's another drain. You see these people that don't have kids, and then you see Social Security supporting all these elderly people. We're going to get to a point, Social Security relies on us having children that are then paying into Social Security, right?
Productive.
If we get to a point where no one's having children, there's going to be Social Security trying to support all these old people that didn't have children and nobody to fund the Social Security. And we're in this weird, but I think we've seen that happen, especially with government reliance a lot with the destruction of like the nuclear family and household. Older folks are relying on the government, which just affects society as a whole because it's expensive. It should be our duty to take care of the elderly. It should be our duty to take care of our own, and those that aren't our own, that are independent like widows. As Christians, it's also our duty to take care of them.
Yeah, and the government sucks at the things that they're supposed to be good at. Mm-hmm. So adding anything else onto their plate just always seems like a bad idea to me.
Yeah.
Like again, they suck at the things that they're supposed to do generally.
Yeah.
So
the house is not the place for the government to be intervening.
No.
I see it. I mean, you've seen it coming from, a family divorce. It's the judges always say it at work. Like, look, go out there in the hallway, figure it out, come to a conclusion. Somebody might have to give a little more than the other person, but trust me, you don't want to come back in here. You don't want me making the decision, because it's true. The government shouldn't have to come in and make that decision for you like that. Your house and how things operated. Okay, if you're splitting, whatever, at least do that on your own terms. Make this decision what's best for you. Don't make some elected official, or judge tell you how your house has got to run. Like nobody wants that. Yeah. That's the worst case scenario, that somebody in the government has to step in and say, look, with kids too, you see people that just do terrible things, and it's like, you know.
Yeah, and we're talking about having a bunch of kids and how wonderful that is, and there's of course the other side of the world today. You got the group that's like, oh, I don't want any kids, or maybe one, the 2 dogs and a pet kid kind of thing. Where you've got the accessory kid. Then you've got the side where people are having lots and lots and lots of kids with lots and lots and lots of people, or
it's another one.
Boys who are getting multiple women pregnant, and maybe they're financially supporting them, maybe they're not, but that's not what I'm talking about with
having lots of kids.
Being great to have a bunch of kids. That's
a drain to the whole society.
That's rough. And it's just not fair to the kids.
It's not.
It's not fair to the kids. But so, we understand that kind of stuff happens. That's not what we're talking about. The ideal thing is man meets girl, or boy meets girl. Boy marries girl. Boy gets girl pregnant. They have kids. Now boy becomes man and leads in this family. And hopefully more kids come. I think having one kid is better than not having any kids, without a doubt. But I think having one kid, when you have the ability to have more than one kid, is it's almost unfair to that kid. Like, you're keeping from them so much, and giving them too much in another way.
Yeah.
It's funny because, having lots of kids, it's really easy for me to tell when I meet a kid or am around a kid if they're an only child. Like, I can tell like that. Not that every only child is
bad,
a pain in the ass,
selfish,
but they're different.
Yeah, they're different.
There's definitely there's a positive to having to grow up around siblings, making you not the absolute center of attention all the time.
Yeah. And there's something to that that's like, I think, bigger that people don't really think about. Like, look at Rose, like, she's getting older. Like, she knows how to be a mom. Like, you don't have to, she's been taught that, but not been taught that. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's going to go out there and hopefully meet an awesome husband and have an awesome family.
She better all kill him.
But like, those type of things, like, have just naturally been taught to her just by a household that's operated properly, right? She's seen Jerry Lynn do it. She's seen, her do it right, but she's also participated in it, right? Yeah. Because as you have kids, the other kids, like, they pick up their responsibilities. And I don't know, because I haven't lived that life yet, but I would imagine.
Get on board, man.
Well, I'm on board.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get Deanna on board.
Well, we're both on board. We're we're ready to make that next step. But anyways, I would imagine that.
Let's see if we can make Drew blush today.
Yeah. I would imagine that, your older kids would want to do that. Like, when Mark's born, I'm saying there's times that they don't. Right, and there's times that they're like, taking time from whatever. But they're going to naturally be drawn to, like, that's my sibling. I want to help take care of them and learning these skills that,
Yes, no, sometimes, not always. Because of course it gets complicated. And like, Rose does babysit her siblings and Liza helps. Rose is almost 15 and Liza's 12. So they do a good job of leading together in that way. And sometimes they don't want to do it, and sometimes they want time alone. And, there's that dynamic there. All of the dynamics that we encounter in society are there in that little group. And kids will interact with each other in a way that the parents won't interact with kids. Like, last night, we're getting ready to do bedtime with the kids, and all the kids are upstairs, and I'm coming up the steps, and I hear Alice just wailing. So I go in there, I'm like, what's going on? And she was pestering Mavis. She was being a pain. And you know what happened? Mavis smacked her right across the mouth. Hard. Like, Alice is 5, Mavis is 10. And, Mavis has been training since she was 7. It's like, Mavis knows how to do violence pretty good for a 10-year-old. And she cracked Alice pretty good, which isn't good. It's not what she was supposed to do. And I had to have a talk with Mavis. And I'm like, what are you doing? why did you hit your sister? She just would not leave me alone. She was pestering me. I'm like, that doesn't really give you the right to smack her in the face. In the back of my head, I'm like, okay, you know, I'm gonna, that's semi-justified. And then I went over and talked to Alice, and I'm like, hey, do I think she was right for hitting you? No. Would I have spanked you for that? No. But should you have been pestering her? Probably not. Were you supposed to be in her room? No. Yeah. Like, so consequences happen, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you understand that sometimes your big sister has a little bit of a short fuse and you just found the end of it.
Yeah. I think yeah.
And so they get to experience consequences inside the household where Mavis loves Alice.
Yeah.
She smacked her and she wanted it to hurt, but she didn't want to hurt her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's going to exercise restraint more than somebody else might. Yeah. Some other kid might. That smack might be followed up with a punch. I don't know. Yeah. It's a little kid, but still.
And like you said, like there's dynamic there that kids are learning amongst themselves that obviously a single kid doesn't get to experience. You know, I think anybody that has siblings, like people are probably gonna like freak out because like, oh, this kid hit his kid. Anybody that's got siblings has had fights with their siblings.
Dude,
that's the truth.
Yeah, me and Wes, my stepbrother, man, we used to go at it all the time. I mean, that was just like part of our daily thing. Do you remember sock and boppers? Mm-hmm. The inflatable things?
Yeah,
we
hurt though.
Dude, we had it. We got a pair of those when I don't know what year did those come out? We were children.
Pretty young.
And we're like, yeah. So we're in the spare bedroom in the house, and those things lasted one punch each, and then they were deflated, and then it was just a bare knuckle fist fight, and we beat the shit out of each other. If you have multiple siblings and you've never been smacked by your sibling, then I don't know, either good on you and good on your parents, or maybe not.
Yeah, there's so much there too, like properly oriented, right? Like, was it right for her to hit her? No, you know. So she's learning.
She's 10.
Yeah, and she's learning, you know, what's right, what's wrong. Like, okay, I can't do that because that's not right. But that doesn't mean that her getting nagged by her little sister was right either. You know, there's like a lot of dynamic there that both kids are learning a lot from that experience.
Yeah,
if they didn't have siblings, they wouldn't learn these things.
Right, and as the parent, like it's easy to come in flying hot and be like, "What are you doing hitting your sister? You're not supposed to do that." Mm-hmm. And give her the 20-minute dad speech. And sometimes that happens because, you know, I'm not always the most level-headed person either. But the reality is, like, she knew. As soon as she did it, she knew she was wrong. That's probably not the right thing to do. And she knew there was going to be consequences for it, and she was going to be in trouble. And that's how it goes. You know, but it also being in that big group of kids, like, the kids learn how to stick up for one another, and they learn like the consequences of tattletaling and like when you need to involve the parents and when maybe the parents don't need to know about this one, because all of those things are dynamics that are real.
Yeah.
And it teaches you things that parents, we're not super smart sometimes. Like we don't think to teach every single little thing that just life in general will teach you.
And like speaking to that, we'll get back. But like speaking towards like the kids dynamic, I remember one of my mom's close friends at a beach house. They aren't probably going to watch this, but if they do, I'm assuming they knew this happened. But I don't know if it was me or one of the other little
names,
kids.
dates, and time.
Yeah,
Let's fully
but everybody,
you.
she was a clean freak about stuff, which rightfully so. It was a beautiful house. It was, you know, but I don't remember it was me. Somebody spilled juice like on the carpet.
How dare you?
Going up the stairs. Like it was bad. And they were older kids. Like, I mean, her friends' children were older. Like they were 7 or 8 years older than me. So they were like 16, you know, at the time. So they were pretty much adults, not adults, but you know what I mean? They were like 10 and 8-year-olds running around the house. And we were like, oh, geez, she's going to kill us. She's going to kill us. You know, and they're all at dinner or whatever, having their night out with the parents. And we're like, okay, we could do two things. We could just wait till they get home and be like, hey, we spilled juice on the carpet. There it is. Or we could try to fix this. And we tried to fix it. You know, the older kids took the reins and, you know, got the stuff to clean it. And we cleaned it. And it looked pretty daggum like it wasn't there, you know? And those are skill sets that like, we probably never done that before, but now we got to because, and it's right.
Trying to protect each other from a mom and dad. Sometimes you get kind of crafty.
And we still got to, it's the right thing to fess up. Hey, we spilled juice on the carpet, right? And we freaked out a little bit. We thought you'd be mad. So this is what we did to try to fix it. But situations like that, there's a dynamic of kids learning things. Like they're learning how to, solve a problem. And like if you're the parent, it's like, okay, I wish you hadn't spilled juice you were running up the stairs with an open cup with grape juice in it. Like you probably shouldn't have been running up the stairs. Like, okay. But at the same time, I'm thinking.
Those are such minor things.
Yeah, they are. But I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I'm proud that the kids as a whole were like, okay, we've got a problem. Let's figure out how we can solve this solution. And they did. And they cleaned it. And it looks as good as if I cleaned it, right?
Yeah.
Spilled juice is going to happen, right? And we learn how to clean it up.
Yeah.
Because it happens.
Yeah. That's that kind of thing. Like the broken dishes and spilt cups and messes and that kind of stuff.
Minor.
Not even minor. It's like, whatever. Now, I mean, sometimes there's a little bit of, depends what, how things happen and why things happen. Was it you were being neglectful and like irresponsible that caused something to happen? Okay, we need to address that in a way. But again, like there's always a thing happening when you got a house with a bunch of kids in it. Yeah. So like, Liza was washing dishes and one of the bowls slipped out of her hand and broke against another bowl in the sink. And she's crying her eyes out. She feels so bad. I'm like, dude, are you cut? No. Like, okay, I don't care about the bowl. You're doing dishes. Yeah. Like my 12-year-old is doing all the dishes. Break a dish from time to time. It's an accident, no big deal. Like, and rock on.
Do your dishes. Like that's like something that I've always thought about too, like from a household standpoint, getting away from like the larger scale household is like an economic vehicle to succeed and then support the community. But on like a small scale, like children are assets, people are going to crucify us like, oh, child labor. But like,
hell yeah, child labor. I got 5 kids. I put them to work as often as possible.
Absolutely. Like they should be pulling their weight, right? I mean, that's how you instill responsibilities in children.
And the reality is they don't always. They have chores that they're supposed to do, and they're supposed to do dishes, and they're supposed to clean the rooms, and they're supposed to help with the laundry in the living room and all the things. And sometimes they're awesome about it, and sometimes they're not awesome about it. And sometimes I have to get on them, and that's all just part of the thing. Like I see some of these guys on the internet that have multiple kids, and they've got like this is the list of the things that the kids do every single day, and they've got 1 hour of reading and self-reflection, and then they've got 3 hours of school, and then they do this chore and this chore and this chore and this chore every day, and this is how they do it. And I read that and I'm like,
yeah.
Holy crap, that's really impressive. Or maybe it doesn't actually work out like that every day.
Yeah.
Because in our house, it doesn't work out like that every day. Sometimes.
You should be learning how to carry your own weight. I think that's the most important thing. I've always been like weirded out. Like you give kids allowances so they like understand the dynamic of like work can result in like having a financial benefit because that's how economically the world works nowadays. But
I have mixed emotions about the allowance thing.
In my opinion, like you're living in this house, like exactly. And I'm a parent, so like I have a duty to take care of my kids and raise them right and send them out into the world so they can better the whole world essentially. But like you've got a duty and responsibility as a kid, especially when you're in those teenage ages to like carry your own weight too. Like those are your dishes. Like okay, one day you're gonna do the dishes. The next day you're gonna do the dishes. No, I'm not going to pay for you because you're doing your dishes like that. When you're an adult, nobody's going to pay you to do your dishes. Nobody's going to pay you to clean your room. Like these are things that we do as humans. You know, this is like keeping up with human things. Like these are responsibilities that like, okay, the 2-year-old's not doing dishes yet, but once you're of age, like there's a kid down the street from us. I don't know, maybe he's a little young, but he's out there on the riding lawnmower and like, I don't know, he might not even be 10. He looks like he's out there though. I mean, he's doing a good job and he's got his hat and his, and he's getting after it. And like, okay. People might be like, well, that's kind of seems a little extreme, but like, I guarantee you that little 10, 12-year-old probably seen dad cutting the grass and is like, I could do that. Let me do that, Kids are way more capable than we think they are. Yes.
And usually when I talk to the kids about it, because again, like the reality is they're not always perfect about doing those things. And that's the point is not for my 12-year-old to be perfect about doing all of her chores on time and perfect about doing all of her schoolwork just right. And That's not the point. And for me to expect perfection in there is completely unfair because I'm so imperfect and I screw up so much stuff and I don't do what I'm supposed to do from time to time. But to teach them how to do it, why it's important to do it, and that, you know, sometimes there's some grace to be given there. But the conversation that I'll have with them, and, you know, maybe it's not the best way to do it, but I've had it in the past where it's, okay, you understand that all these things have to get done, right? Like everybody knows that the laundry has to get done. Everybody in the freaking house does jujitsu. You know how much laundry gets done in our house? Our washing machine runs 24 hours a day.
Has to.
So, like, okay, you know these things have to happen. You know that part of your responsibility is to help with these things. Well, when you choose not to do it, does it still need done? Yes. Who does it? Mom. I'm like, what else does mom do? Everything. Yeah, she cooks the dinner. She does the laundry. She makes sure that the house is clean. She, you know, makes sure that you're fed and you're ready for class and all these things that are all your responsibility. But when we fall short, I'm like, and I always have to say we because I fall short too. I'm like, who picks up the slack? It's her. I'm like, do you think that's the way it should be? No. Okay, are we going to help? Yeah. And then they're back on track and it's not like I want to guilt them. It's just the actual reality. Like, okay, these things need done. Somebody's doing them. Who do you think that somebody is? We already had the discussion that we don't do Santa Claus, so you know it ain't him. No magical fairies coming in and cleaning up your messes. Like it's a mom that puts in the extra effort when everybody else falls short. And they see that, and that helps a lot.
Yeah, and they love their mother, and like they're going to get to a point where they're like, "Yeah, mom's kind of like." I think if properly oriented, I think kids will come to that conclusion. You know, especially if they're being taught the correct way. That like, you know, mom is putting in a lot of work. You know, I'm old enough now that like I could probably help her do that. Yeah. You know, and if they love their parent, you know, they're going to want to help. Not saying that they're always going to not whine or whatever, because like, you know. There's going to be times as an adult, I don't want to do laundry.
Kids get attitudes from time to time.
But, you know, they're going to want to support the household. They're going to want to, like, you know, you come home from the shop and, like, you want, you know, I washed your shirt. Like, fresh shirt. You know, like, that's value-oriented for the children to learn. Like, okay, they've created value in something that they've put their hands and work into. Like, that's how we operate as humans. That's how we go out into the world and make the world better as a whole. Like, we serve others with our hands, with our spirit, with our minds. Like that's what we do, whether that be building houses with your physical hands, whether that be writing books like this to help people grow their education and their minds and their spirituality and things like that. Like that's how that's the crux of it all.
Yeah. And I think, you know, to give to the other side of that just a little bit, it's also, you know, got to be careful that you don't want the children to do what they're doing because they feel guilty because they're the ones that are causing mom stress. Like I want to be careful that I mention that it's not, you know, don't want your children to think that they're the one that's causing mom stress and anxiety. Because I'm sure that leads to all kinds of things down the road. That's probably not great.
See, I think that's like firsthand insight though. That's good.
Maybe because I've screwed that one up a time or two, but yeah, I don't know. And again, the goal is not for kids to be perfect at those things. But like when I go home for lunch, sometimes it was Liza that cooked me lunch. And it's freaking awesome. I'll come home and she's like, she made lunch. And sometimes it's really good. Sometimes it's, you know, sometimes it was cooked by sometimes it was cooked by a 12-year-old. And I'll sit down and I'll eat and she'll be like, Dad, can I get you a glass of milk? I'm like, yeah. And like they're learning how to serve in a household, not in a servant way, but in a positive way. And again, being inside that community that they have in the house with the limitations, like positive guardrails that are there, they learn how to police each other and they learn how to stand up for one another. Liza stood up to a bully for another kid a couple weeks ago.
Which is freaking awesome.
Which was, dude, she came home from class, from dance, not even in jiu-jitsu. She came home from dance and she was really quiet. And I'm like, what's up, kiddo? And she just started crying. I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, something happened in dance class today. I'm like, okay, what happened? She's like, I pushed a girl. I'm like, okay. And Elizabeth is like the ultimate sweetheart. She's the ultimate sweetheart. And I'm like, okay, what happened? So, well, this one girl she was like dragging another girl around on the floor who did not want to be dragged. This kid is kind of notorious for picking on the other kid. She's the biggest one in the class. Mm-hmm. She's young, but she's a big girl. And she was dragging around one of the other girls by her shirt or by her arm or something. And the girl asked her to stop. She wouldn't do it. And Liza stepped up and was like, hey, you need to stop.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't do it. So Liza grabbed her, yanked her off the girl, and shoved her down. I was like, you don't do that. And then the kid stopped. She's like, oh, shit, I got checked here.
Yeah. They probably never been checked before.
Never been checked before. Mm-hmm. So Liza's crying her eyes out. She thought she did something wrong. And I'm like, trying not to tear up. I'm so proud of you. I just gave her a hug. I'm like, hey, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Like that's
absolutely.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
I'm like, would Rose do that for you? Yeah. Would you do that for Mavis? Yeah. Would Mavis do that for Alice? I think Mavis would probably let it go on for a little while with Alice before she would step in, but she would step in, and like, that's just, they've learned that in this house. Like they see me stand up for their mother, and that's just how it goes. And that was, minor. Luckily, she didn't have to choke a kid out or anything like that. But she got the opportunity to she's choked me unconscious before. She was like 7. She had just started training, and she came up behind me at the gym and sunk in a rear naked choke. And I'm like, Liza, put your hooks in. Liza, put your hooks out cold. Yeah. So yeah, she could have, but it was good. It was cool. It was proud. And it was like, that was just one of those examples. Like, okay, coming from this big household, she learned how to do that. And I thought was cool.
Which is awesome. And those are those type of things that like you don't get if you're, you don't get that same type of dynamic. And I think, she did that because she's been raised properly, and she's been oriented towards that, towards serving others and protecting others. There's a movie called Gifted. It's not like a Christian movie or anything. It's, and he gets this girl.
Oh, the Christian movies suck, man.
Yeah, they do. They're getting better though. Like Angel Studios, some of the new stuff that they do
it's pretty good.
It's gotten better. I think it's just they don't have the budget, which is sad, but that's the reality.
I feel like I think the Christian community is getting better. But it seemed like through the 90s, like in order to be a Christian, you had to be like super nerdy and awkward.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's not. Yeah, I have like a lot of.
Sorry,
no. I get that, and I have a lot to unpack there too. Like, they're like also in like the Christian world, there's like this like minimalistic approach to certain stuff, and in
my cult, we're not weird.
Join, but like churches, like buildings, like you see these like steel structures that are like the cheapest possible building they can muster, and I get it if like that's what all you can afford, but like if we're building a church for God, we're building these things for God, like it's not, in my opinion, irresponsible to build like a beautiful cathedral. There's kind of goes to what we talked about the other day. There's a balancing act, but it's like we should want to build beautiful things for the Lord. I'm not saying we, do extravagant things, but if there's something that we spend our money on, I feel like the church building would be one that was like. That's another topic. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole. It's more to unpack than a simple concept.
Yeah, but right.
Like speaking of the household and like how things, can support the bigger picture, right? And it's how we frame it, right? We shouldn't. There's this, you see the concept of like, I have a job, I go out, I support, my family financially. I come home, let's say your spouse works, she supports the house financially or whatever. There's like this individualistic type mentality, that is, it's almost like you're serving not your own household, is like almost in the way that it ends up working out, And I think when you see the household oriented properly, you see it serving the house as a whole, and it holds up the people in it. And when, like, look at your family for an example. Like, at some point you're going to have grandkids, probably a lot.
I hope so.
A lot of grandkids. And think of the things that your household, when you're 70 years old, can do. You're going to have all these people with these different skill sets, some skill sets that probably traveled down the ranks from you. You know, let's say Mark, he's like, oh, granddad, you know, built construction. Dad built beautiful cars. I'm going to go out and build houses or something. So now you have this kid that's generationally learned these skill sets and he's building these beautiful houses. He could build other siblings' houses and things like that. You have this huge family that can support each other as a. At this point, we all have our individual. Like you have your household, I have my household, they have their household, and while grandkids are technically under your umbrella, you know they've created their own household once you know they leave and cleave. But now it's like we have our own household and almost like our own community that holds each other up and is strong. And when you have a virtuous, righteous community like that, it can then overflow into the rest of the world, right? And that's how we win the world. Like speaking from a Christian standpoint, like going out there and serving for the Lord and being a force, like a strong force for the Lord, not just out there preaching, but like doing good works, out there doing charitable works, out there building decks for old people, building houses for people, like the stuff, like just carrying yourself with character and integrity and serving honestly in whatever vocation you end up doing, you know?
Yeah. Well, and even from the, you know, from the selfish individual standpoint, like what are we working for all these years of our lives?
Yeah.
You know, at some point we're all going to get old. We're all going to get less physically capable. You know, I'm never going to get less handsome, but you know,
you just get a touch of gray. I guess you won't get a touch of gray.
I don't get
your beard to get a touch of gray.
Yeah, I don't get to get any gray
now.
But you know, having kids, like okay, the 25-year-old guy's like, I don't want any kids. I don't want that responsibility. Whatever. Well, okay, you're not going to be 25 forever. At 55, you're starting to go, you know, who am I going to leave this life to? Who's going to be around me when I'm 60 and 70 and 80? If you have kids and hopefully when you're in your 50s, your kids are grown, they're starting families. So you get to kind of, you know, you get to see what you've grown, so to speak. And then as their kids grow, you get the joy of seeing, you know, you produced this human and given them the tools and the knowledge on how to use the tools. And now they're building a human. And it's just it's the thing that we work for. It's the thing that we work towards. It's the reward that we get for a life well lived is the fruit of our labor in our family is children and grandchildren. And, you know, if you're lucky enough, a few years with great grandchildren and then a legacy where they can do the same thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, having a bunch of kids, I always joke with my kids, I'm like, you each need to have at least 5 kids so that I can have 25 grandkids. And if each of those grandkids have 5 kids, like I'm starting a freaking nation here.
Yeah. Which we should want to do, right?
And from a faith standpoint, like I screw up in so many ways and I try and be open with my kids about that. Like, hey, you know, this is where my mess ups are. But this is where my faith is. This is why. And I'm trying to live the example that shows, okay, as imperfect as dad is, this is what he believes and why he believes it, and raise them in a way where they see the same and they work towards the same center.
Yeah.
And if I'm successful at that and my 5 children grow up probably more knowledgeable in this than me, because I started relatively late in learning this. You know, they're all starting my 3-year-old is getting Bible stories every day. My 3-year-old knows Jesus. He knows who he is. And when he's in his 30s and he's raising young children, he's going to be able to give them more than I can. And if we're careful and thoughtful and mindful and dedicated in the way that we raise our kids. And then if we can manage to keep them relatively close logistically enough to where we can be involved in helping raise the grandchildren, I think there's even more, maybe not more importance, but certainly just as much importance there. Like I remember conversations with my grandfather, my dad's dad, about the Bible and Jesus. I remember conversations with him about those things better than I remember conversations with my own parents.
Yeah.
And they hit differently from him because I saw him, he had already, as young parents into middle-aged parents, like you're still in the gaining experience that turns into wisdom stage.
Yeah.
By the time you're a grandparent, you're
at that level.
You're beyond some of the stupidity of your 20s and 30s and 40s. So I saw my grandfather as a really good Christian man. I didn't experience the Ray Yoakum that my dad experienced growing up.
Yeah.
So like all of the that's grandpa was a hard ass towards dad.
Yeah.
And, they've got issues there. I didn't have any of that with him. So I got old wise Grandpa Yoakum, and the stuff that he would say to me, even though I was a young rebellious kid, I took it very seriously.
Yeah.
I believed what he told me. And I think that's a role that I really look forward. I mean, I'm not super stoked to get old. Like I don't want to rush there, but I really look forward to the idea of being able to share some of that with my grandkids. Like I'm screwing stuff up with my kids. I'm trying not to, but I know I am. And they're going to have things that they'll tell their kids when they're raising their kids. Yeah, your grandfather your grandfather used to do this, and this was pretty stupid and whatever. But hopefully they'll see me at that point as that old wise man that if you pull his skin just right, you can still see some of his tattoos. keep the TRT going in my 70s.
But I think you're spot on with that, and you should hope for that and pray for that and be oriented towards that. And that brought up a little bit on that topic of, like the modern world, like everyone's like all about the testimony. This was on one of the podcasts when I was driving here, and everyone's all about their testimony. You have these pastors and these people that lead these churches or go around traveling and talking to these churches that have these
testimony is just Christian clickbait.
It's that a good way to put it. I have these like grand testimonies where they were a drug addict or they killed somebody and now they're, been saved. And that is an amazing thing. And as a Christian, that's what we hope for anybody that's broken and fallen from grace. But if we're going to be looking up to people, we shouldn't be looking up to the people that had this tumultuous life and then through the grace of God have transformed into this new being. We should be looking towards the old grandfather that's been in the Lord and been a virtuous, righteous person their whole entire life. There's people out there like that. And for some reason, maybe it's the clickbait type mindset we have nowadays. There's some reason that like we look to the broken transformation.
Everybody likes a transformation story.
Yeah. It's just, and it's, I think we need to get back oriented, right? Like we need to be looking towards the guy that's raised a big household that, any human is going to have sin in their life of some sort, how do they overcome it? And, but what I want to get at is we should be looking towards the man that's been, battled that down and has lived a righteous life and, hasn't had these large scale issues,
Yeah.
Those are the people we should be looking towards, not the guy that was in prison for 30 years and is transformed. And now like for some reason we're drawn to that we're drawn away from the like boring testimony that we should be drawn to.
Yeah, I think maybe like TV and movie culture has played into that a little bit where everybody likes an underdog story, everybody likes a comeback story. So like even growing up, I never got into a bunch of trouble as a kid. I did plenty of stupid stuff. Came pretty close sometimes. I never did drugs and drank. I didn't do a lot of things that a lot of the people I knew ended up in real trouble and ended up. So I never had to like dig myself out of some terrible hole. And for a while, it was like I almost felt like I deprived myself a little bit. Like, oh, maybe I should have drank more in my 20s. Maybe I should have gotten some more fights. Maybe I should have done this. And as I get older, I'm like, that is so dumb. Like
it is very
I don't want any of my children to grow up and have to go through that kind of thing so that they could get through it.
Yeah.
Like that.
It's dumb.
It's dumb. It doesn't even make sense. You know, I've got a good buddy of mine who he did go down that road and he did come out of it, and he's a good man. He's got lots of kids. And I've talked to him about this so many times because it's funny. Like, you know, out of the two of us, I'm obviously the one that's a bit more rough around the edges. And like me and him, out of the two of us, I'm the super clean cut one, and he's the one that's rough around the edges. I mean, I could kick his ass now, but that's a new development.
A lot of people that fit that, people you could beat up.
Well,
old, it's not me.
It wasn't the story with him for a long time. Anyways, and for a while I was like kind of jealous.
Yeah, I know. I get that.
You know, like, oh man, he's tougher and like it's cool. I thought it was cool. But the reality is, and he would straight up tell me, he's like, you're an idiot. Like, no, you don't want to have gone through what I went through. It wasn't a good thing. And he's wise enough now to see that. And, you know, I wish I hadn't. And I've figured it out, obviously. But no, I think it's important to try and be and raise children that don't have to. You don't have to have an extreme testimony. Your testimony can be, you know, I've been guarded and protected enough to stay on the righteous path.
Yeah. I think that's important, really important. And I think that's something that speaks to this generational family and a household. You know, one of the pastors that he's in the news now, Doug Wilson, because he says things that people don't like. And he says them straight up. But he's someone that's father was a pastor. They've done great things for their church. Now he's a pastor. He was in the military, you know, and he's a pastor, but he's lived this virtuous, righteous life. That doesn't mean he hasn't had slip-ups and sin at some point, you know, but he's lived this life. He's raised Christian children that all serve the Lord now and live virtuous, righteous lives and serve their community as a whole. Like, that's the person that, like, if I'm looking for somebody for wisdom, like, those are the people I'm going to look towards. But for some reason, it doesn't seem to be that way with people. Like, they want to look towards the guy that's like overcome drug addiction and is now a follower of Christ. And that's good. And you can look towards that. But
yeah, those things are wonderful.
Those are not the people that
it's not ideal.
We should be orienting.
We should certainly give anybody who's been through that kind of thing and has come out of it, like, they deserve.
Oh, absolutely.
They deserve
we should be joyful for that.
And that's fantastic. Like, awesome. Thank God, literally. But trust me, saying that you've lived a righteous life is like, nobody does that, for one. Like, sin is a real thing. Temptation is a real thing. So it's hard enough to, if you quote unquote manage to live a righteous life up to the point of having children and raising your children, there's plenty of slip ups in there. There's plenty of sin in there. There's plenty of failure in there. Like, that's enough. Yeah. You know, the day to day is enough. Yeah. To make it very, very difficult to stay on the path. Yeah. You know, the narrow path is not straight. No. It is not straight at all.
And not easy.
It's not. So don't like, you know, intentionally put stupid things in your way. Yeah. You know, Jerry Lynn sent me she knew I was having a pity party for myself earlier in the week. And she sent me, and she never sends me Bible verses. It's just, she sees it as kind of cheesy, and that's not her thing. But she sent me once. Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial, because when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. That's James 1:12. And you know, that's it. That's the calling. You know, to persevere, which is what it takes. It's what it takes to it's what it takes to make it through school. Yeah. To a very minimal degree. Mm-hmm. It's what it takes to start, maintain, and grow a relationship to the point where it's one worthy of marriage. Mm-hmm. It's what it takes to nurture that marriage to the point of, I mean, it doesn't take much to produce a kid. That's fun and easy. But to prepare a house for a kid in a positive way, to nurture a wife through the pregnancy process until, if you're, you know, man enough to deliver that kid yourself, you know, or
check that one off your box.
or unlucky enough.
Yeah, either way you think about it.
And it takes perseverance to raise children. You know, toddlers are tough, bro. Like toddlers are hardcore, and you know, up through all of the ages. I mean, I've only got experience up to 14 and a half, so you know, I'll keep you posted. But it takes perseverance to learn and grow and continue to move forward in all these stages, to keep your faith, to lead your family in their faith. None of these things are easy. They're all amazing.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about before, it's an adventure. It is a nonstop. If you got a house full of kids, it is an adventure all the time. You never know what's going to happen. You might have a kid that runs a sewing needle through their finger, or one that falls and splits their head open, or your 3-year-old might punch your 5-year-old in the nose. You never know. It's always some level of chaos. It's always some level of adventure. But it's awesome. I think God makes it fun and hilarious and awesome to give us some motivation to continue to persevere.
I really do like the Holy Spirit putting it on my heart, you know, and I thank God for you coming into my life and being able to see this lived out, and thank him for putting the right resources and the right wisdom from other Christians. But I really do believe that like a true Christian life is lived out through a household, and how that household is built and interacted with the community as a whole. Like that's not
you should text Deanna right now and be like, tonight we need to make babies.
It's getting close. But
remember, it probably doesn't happen the first time. You need to start working on it now.
But this is another thing too. There's two things I want to hit before we're getting a little long.
It's also fun to practice.
It's true. Have friends like Kyle that are pushing you toward, like he's pushing me towards something that I have some fear.
Everybody's saying, no, Kyle's pushy.
Yeah. But yeah, you want friends that are pushing you towards doing the right thing. And like, you don't want a friend that's like, oh, well, you know, maybe the kid, you know, you're not the best financial situation. You know, you really think you can handle that? Like, no, you want a friend that's going to be like, look, my kids are joyful. My kids are amazing. They've been such an asset to my life, and we're going to grow old together, and we're going to build this awesome household. You need to pick up your bootstraps and do this thing. You know, you want friends that are going to push you towards those things and get around people. I think that is super important. I've lived that out and experienced that, and it's helped shape where I'm at now in life and where I'm going into the future in my life with Deanna and as, you know, household as a whole. Yeah, that's important. But one thing that I didn't hit that was talked about, there's a lot of like things that happened back in the past, right? And there's like this concept of like, I don't want to call it like I don't know what would be the right term, but like, because it happened in the past, it's not right. And it's something wrong, right? Like chronologicalism is like a word that isn't a word, I don't think, but something I want to say. Like, because it happened prior to...
Chronologicalism.
Yeah. I don't think that's a word.
I kind of like it.
I like it. But because it happened in 1850, it's inadequate.
Right.
We know the correct way to do it. And I think that's a lie.
We're so much smarter now.
Yeah, that's stupid. We're humans, and humans have always been humans. And we've always struggled with sin. We've always been drawn to the same things. We have technology now, which maybe helps us or even pushes us towards the wrong things in some cases. But
it helps us to do the wrong thing.
We've got to look towards the past in a correct framework. Like, they could have been living better in 1850. You know, we don't. Just because it happened in 1850 doesn't mean that it wasn't right. You know, and that doesn't say that we go backwards. You know, we need to take what we can take from the past and understand that they could have done things right in their family structure and how they were orienting their house and how, you know, culture worked as a whole. But one thing that was interesting, and you hear the perspective shift, and I feel the perspective shift like a dowry. Like, parents had a dowry for the daughter, right? And they would build up money. And when they married off their daughter, that dowry went to the husband. And there's a lot that could be wrong there, right? Because then you got people that didn't have dowries and their kid never got married because nobody wanted her, right? But when you just think about the concept of a dowry, it's not all bad, right? There's good things that come from a dowry, right? You know, if you have the ability now, what is the modern dowry? Oh, a college fund. Like, my kid has a college fund so he can go to college for free and then go out there and get a job. Like, that's like the modern dowry. But let's say you have a daughter that they had a dowry. What does that dowry enable them to be able to do? Okay, they find a husband. Now they're able to have a down payment on a house. Right. They have these basic financial resources that they can get a head start, that the kid that's parents are like, I'm not paying for nothing. When they're 18, they can go out there and do their own thing. The person with the daughter with the dowry, it has this fun that they can use to kickstart and get a head start and, again, jump out from the household.
As long as they've been trained in how to use those tools.
Absolutely. And hopefully, but then again, parents being our wise guides, hopefully, and when done correct, that's what it's supposed to be. Hopefully they're going to be helpful to their daughter in selecting a husband. Nowadays, it's like, you don't tell me who to marry.
Right.
I'm not saying that they tell you who to marry to the sense of like arranged marriages, but then again, something that happened in the past that, is it just completely wrong? Should we just throw it completely out? Yeah, okay, an arranged marriage to where they make you marry something. I don't believe that to be right. But when you should have a lot of input from your parents and trust your input from your parents. If they've been trustworthy your whole life and guided you and you've fallen and been picked up and you can trust in them, if they're telling you like, look, this guy, he's not right for this, and this reason, you should be respectful and honest with yourself and say, okay, my parents have been these guides to me. Maybe there's something here,
Yeah. Again, it's teaching them how to use the tools. First, in your actions. Like, do you have a good marriage? If you have a really good marriage, if your marriage is awesome, you've been an example for your kids, and they see what your marriage is, and they see that as something that they want.
Yeah.
For one, that gives you a little bit more weight in your corner. Mm-hmm. And the relationship that you've built with your kids. Do you talk to your kids? Do you talk to your kids about the problems that they have, the problems that you have? Not like as a peer-to-peer, because your 12-year-old is not your peer, but enough so that they understand you're human and they understand that you are interested and care about what they're going through. Mm-hmm. There's that whole I'm not your friend, I'm your father kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a big mistake there, because there's got to be a little bit of relationship there. Mm-hmm. Not just relationship out of fear and you know what I'm saying. Hopefully you guys know what I'm saying too, because I'm at a loss for words.
I think
for once,
friends aren't fathers, but fathers are friends. Again, a simple way.
The way I've thought about it is, you want to be a father that earns the position of friend.
Yeah.
Because your duty is to be the father, without a doubt. That's what you're required to do. But if you can be a father who is also a friend, like every once in a while you see a guy who will talk about their dad as their best friend, which is great, as long as they were also a good father. Not just dad, but a good father, a good leader in the home, who taught them how to use the tools. So if you've got that relationship, when your daughter brings home a guy who you're going, man, this guy's making the hair on the back of my neck stand. If there's something here that seems not right, then you've got more of a position to have that conversation with your kid. Hey, I understand that you're feeling like this guy is the guy, or you want to date this guy. Let's be cautious here. This is what I see. And you should be spending some time. If your daughter is dating somebody, you should kind of be dating that person too.
Oh yeah.
My 16-year-old has a boyfriend and they go out together and I'm never there and I'm not involved. Like, I'm not saying that she can hold one of his hands and you need to hold the other hand per se, but you should have a relationship with that kid. Yeah. For one, it gives them the confidence that, hey, this guy is interested in his daughter's well-being and mine. Yeah. And you get to see a little bit of their character there. You can only hide your character for so long. Yeah.
One of the guys at work, he did this really well. And he's a big, intimidating dude too. Like exponentially big dude. So I'm sure probably a little nerve-wracking for his daughter's boyfriend, but that's something that he has done really well. Like, he's fisherman and, fishes locally around our area, and he's built a relationship with his daughter where they'll go fishing, and now she has this boyfriend and they all go fishing together. And now they're to the point now where the boyfriend will text the guy I work with, hey, you want to go fishing? And he has that relationship with the boyfriend, and that's how you really learn how someone is, right? And I'm sure, his daughter sometimes probably like, are you going fishing with my boyfriend without me? But those are the type of, like, you should know that person. It shouldn't be just like, oh, I'm dating some guy at school, we're going out, bye. You should seek a relationship with that person because you don't really know them. I mean, it's easy to put on and to say the right things when you're at the one dinner.
For one, obviously, it's protective of your child.
Yeah.
Which is priority, but it's also, I want to make sure whoever is going to marry my daughters, I want to make sure that they have as many tools in their toolbox as possible. Like, I want them to be successful. If I think that they're in any way worthy of courting my daughter, marrying my daughter, why would I not take part in giving them all of the knowledge and resources that I can to make that successful?
Absolutely. And we'll sum it up because we are getting long, and this goes into my little spiel at the end. But, first off, if you're a young man, you should be dating for marriage. Absolutely. Don't let the world's wickedness and don't let your friends tell you otherwise. Like, you should be dating for marriage. You shouldn't be out there having...
Which is it's like, even in the short term, like, it's way better.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Having something to look forward to than... Well, we're dating right now, and then I'm going to go to school, and we might do what, maybe we'll stay together, maybe we won't. Like, when that's the goal in mind, it makes the relationship even then better. That's Yeah, and I think maybe, I'm not sure when it really started with moving away, getting up, moving out of the house, growing up, moving out of the house and moving away to other parts of the country or whatever. I wonder if, I'm pretty confident that we've really lost something there.
Yeah.
And, not that if my kids decide they want to move away, it's not like I'm going to try and hold them back from that. But my hope would be that they're interested in staying close by so that as a grandparent, I can be part of raising their grandchildren to the degree that my children want me involved, plus just a little bit, because there is such a thing as being
too involved
and overbearing. Like, you got to let your kids raise their kids. But, I had that growing up. My grandparents were all relatively close by. Like, for a long time, I was at my grandma and grandpa Yoakum's every week, every couple of days. I spent a lot of time with my grandfather. And my mom's parents weren't but 30 minutes away, so we spent a decent amount of time with them as well. And then I got out of school and moved away and moved down here. And now my dad lives close, and the kids get to spend some time with him and my stepmom. But my mom lives 600 miles away. She's in town right now, and the kids are spending time with her, but they see her twice a year for maybe a couple days. And I don't think that's ideal.
No, I don't think it is.
Like, there's wisdom that I don't have yet.
Yeah.
I haven't raised a child to adulthood.
Yeah.
I've got some pretty good ideas, I think, on, how I want to do it, but I haven't successfully done it yet. I'm still learning. They have wisdom there that I don't have. Now, granted, I'm raising way more kids than either of my parents did, but still, there's things there that I just don't know yet.
And that's the way it should be. Like, the compound, like, people be joking because we got a cult, but Like the family compound's powerful. There's value there. You know, I'm not saying
dope. It's got a gym. It's got jujitsu mats. You know, the women cook good.
It's got independence that it can hold itself up economically. Right? And when people come try to take your things and take your values, you're strong.
You don't have to wear like funny cloaks or anything. You come in normal clothes.
Yeah. All right. I think we hit that one. That was good.
All right. Sounds good.
This has been Iron and Grace.
Out.